This holiday season, step into the world of Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, the award-winning audio drama podcast from Hope Media Group and Compassion International. Returning for its 2024 season, this classic tale of redemption and forgiveness is brought to life like never before. Whether you're gathered with family or listening solo, Scrooge is the perfect way to embrace the true meaning of Christmas. Feel the power of the season's spirit with a story of transformation and hope. Catch Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, wherever you listen to podcasts or tune in on ScroogePodcast.com. This year, let the story move you and remind you of the joy of forgiveness and the magic of Christmas.
This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
At a certain point, it's not your responsibility anymore to make somebody happy or to make them satisfied or whatever the case is. So I think it's just like really knowing your worth, knowing what you bring to the table. And the thing is that God loves us not for our works, not for what we do. And he doesn't need us to impress him. He already loves us. And so for a while, I definitely felt like I had to include God in every single social media post, every single workout I filmed, to the point where I was afraid that if I didn't include God, that he was going to punish me. And that was a really disempowering season of my life. I didn't feel confident in who I was. I felt like I had to follow all these rules I made for myself.
Hey, Callie, welcome to 80/20.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. It's been a minute since you've been on the pod. I can't remember when we recorded last. Do you remember?
I feel like was it in person at the conference?
I feel like it might have been.
Yeah.
That was like a year and a half ago. That's crazy. That's wild. That was a good episode. That was a really good episode.
That was fire. That was so fun. I missed that. I feel like it wasn't that long ago, but it kind of was.
I know. It was like, I guess that was like a year and a half ago. I feel like we blinked. We blinked. That was crazy. Now life is crazy. You've had a lot of big changes since you last been on the pod, which I can't wait to get into today. But for anyone who doesn't know you, Callie, can you just give a little intro? Who are you? What do you do? All that stuff.
Yeah, I'm Callie. There's so many things I do, so I'll just list them out. I live in South Florida. I have a new baby. She is almost 3 months old. I'm married to my husband named John. I have 2 dogs named Axel and Joy. And I have an in-person Pilates studio that I haven't hard launched it yet, but I've soft opened it. It's called Sunshine Pilates. And you can follow it on Instagram, Sunshine Pilates FL, if you want to follow the journey. I'm transforming my garage into a Pilates studio.
And it looks so good. It looks so good.
It's been so much fun. And then I have an online Pilates studio, an app called Sweaty Studio. I am on all social medias. So doing the social media thing. I have a podcast, Healthy But Human. Yeah, there's a lot of things happening, I feel like. It's been good.
You're a busy girl. You're a very busy girl. Okay, so I want to talk about the most recent addition to your life and to your family, your baby girl. I want to talk about motherhood. What do you think? I feel like there are a million questions I could kick this off with, but what do you think has been the biggest thing that you've had to either learn or relearn about yourself in this season of life?
Oh my goodness. I think the biggest thing has been patience.
Okay.
It's so interesting because having a baby, it slows down your entire life, but like in a good way, because I'm breastfeeding Belle. And so when I breastfeed her, it's like I can be working on my computer, but a lot of the times I'll just be chilling in a chair for like 30 minutes, just trying to be present with her or playing. She'll just be on her little play gym, just like flailing around, kicking things, giggling. And it's like so interesting to me because babies, it's hard to explain it, but it's kind of like time slows down in those moments. It's like I can't be in this busy mode. I have to just pause my life and just be present with her. So I think being patient in those seasons of like I have so much stuff with work happening, but I need to be present with my daughter. I've been having to learn how to do that, which has been really interesting. And even in moments when she doesn't want to sleep and she skips 2 naps on Sunday, and just being patient and being like, it's okay. Like, we're going to navigate this. The next nap is a new chance to fall asleep. So it's been really interesting in that regard.
What do you think has been biggest, I guess, like area of life that you've had to like reconfigure? Would it be like work, like your relationship with John, like, or just like everything across the board has been completely reconfigured?
I think work has been the biggest one. I've definitely been a very spontaneous person. Definitely not a whole lot of planning things out, scheduling things. But now that I have her, she's on a pretty strict schedule, and I'm having to like navigate with work. Okay, I have this window, but it might not even be that full window. So I need to be very productive during this time. And then I have this window for this and all these things. It's a very new to me. I'm just not used to having like this kind of rigid schedule I'm following. It's really interesting, but I like it. I'm definitely a creature of routine. I'm learning about myself.
Do you feel like you have, as a person, have changed?
That's a really good question. I think yes, for sure. I have to like think about that for a second. Yes. I think I have a lot more perspective on things, like things that would have bothered me in the past. I feel like I'm just kind of like, I don't really have time for that. Like,
Mm.
I don't know. It's hard to explain. I feel like I just have kind of a different viewpoint on just situations with people. I don't even know how to explain it.
What do you mean by that? Like little like petty things, or
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, like little petty things. And okay, no, you know what? Here's how I think I've changed as a person. I think that with Belle, like I want to be the best version of myself possible
Mhm.
because I want to be an amazing mom for her. Like habits I've had that maybe aren't necessarily the healthiest habits, like people pleasing, for example. I realize that I have been the biggest people pleaser for my entire life. And I realize like I don't want to teach Belle to be a people pleaser. So I need to work on that
Yeah.
myself and overcome that so that she doesn't learn that from me. So I feel like in a way I've been wanting to develop like having a lot of self-improvement in my life, even like imposter syndrome. Like I don't want Belle to grow up feeling like she's not enough in different areas where she's really valuable and is really good at what she does. So it's really interesting because I think that has sparked this like new love for like just improvement and getting rid of all the bad habits and stuff.
That's amazing to hear you say that, because I know like so many people grow up in households, and I mean, I was so lucky that my mom was such a great role model for me, but I know that so many people unfortunately don't have that experience. And so for you to sit there and say like, I want to be the best version of myself so my daughter can grow up watching that, that's such a beautiful thing. That's
Oh,
amazing.
thanks, girl.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just know you're an amazing mom. I just like you're beautiful and amazing, and Belle's so lucky. She's so lucky.
Love you, girl.
Love you too. Okay, so you mentioned imposter syndrome a little bit. I want to dive into that because you are in the process of opening an in-person Pilates studio. You have Sweaty Studio, you have Healthy But Human. You have so many things in your career field that you're working on that, at least from an outside perspective, you are the authority on. And as far as imposter syndrome goes, like for me, it always manifests itself in a fear of like looking like I'm not like the authority in this specific thing, and also feeling like I'm not equipped enough to be in this specific role. Is that kind of your experience with it as well?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I've been listening to Audible, like audiobooks lately. I'm obsessed. It's a little hack for anyone out there who it just feels like they don't have a lot of time to sit down and read a book. It's so good. But I've been listening to a book about imposter syndrome. Like I'm very, very early days into it. but it's really exposed the imposter syndrome in my life. And I think one of the areas that I noticed I have struggled with that imposter syndrome is in pricing. So whether that's charging people for a Pilates class or charging people for like brand deals. We were kind of talking about that before we actually recorded earlier, is like underpricing ourselves, undercharging brands. And I realized like that is a characteristic of imposter syndrome, is really not believing that I'm valuable enough and that they'll like find me out or something, that like I'm not actually good at what I do. So that's been really interesting to have my eyes just open to that and having more self-awareness in it.
Yeah. I feel like too sometimes, like we were talking about this before we got on the mic as far as pricing goes, and there's just no transparency like in the influencer world. And I cringe when I hear that term, because I don't think of either of us as like influencers. I think of us as like authoritative in our various, you know, careers. And I don't know, influencer sounds so like Kardashian-esque, but like brands will pay an arm and a leg for a video, and it's crazy how there's no transparency. And like sometimes, Callie and I are talking about this, like sometimes they'll offer X and then sometimes they'll offer Y, and those two numbers are vastly different from each other. But either one, I'm like, I don't know if I have the authority to take X or Y. So it's like you mentioned, it's one of those things where it just comes with like finding a confidence in what you are selling. And so how do you feel like you found that confidence, or if you have found that confidence?
I'm going to say, like, this is so fresh for me as of literally last week. Like, I think I've been actively starting to try and work on it. So
Okay.
some of the things that I've been doing, like, for example, I'm listening to this other book called Growth Hacker Marketing by Ryan Holiday. I literally just started it though. Like, it's very fresh. But something that really stuck out to me in this book is he's talking about how like traditional marketing, a lot of times the campaigns fail and people don't really know why. Oftentimes like people will like blame things on whatever. And I'm realizing like I've had, just being completely transparent as someone who has been in social media, like I've had brands come to me and they're like, "Hey, this didn't perform like we wanted. Can you make more of whatever content for free?" In the past, I've like been like, "Oh, like I need to like make sure they like me. I need to make sure that they're happy, all this stuff." To a flaw of being like, okay, well, their script they sent me, I sent them my recommendations. They didn't take that and it didn't perform well.
Yeah.
It's not my problem at this point. So I think that's been something that I've been having to work on, especially in the people pleasing industry, being like, at a certain point, it's not your responsibility anymore to
Yeah.
make somebody happy or to make them satisfied or whatever the case is. So I think it's just like really knowing your worth, knowing what you bring to the table. And maybe it's even sitting down with someone you're close to and being like, "Hey, can you just, not to like butter me up or whatever, but can you just help me understand like how you see me from an outside perspective?" Because I think
Yeah.
literally every single one of us, we are working on becoming better, but that can be sometimes a flaw because we might never look back and see how far we've come. If we're only looking at what's next on the next level, we're going to feel like a beginner everywhere that we go. So it is important to be like, well, I'm definitely an expert in what I'm doing, but I am still getting better. But you
Yeah.
still have to know your value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've got two things to that. And the first thing is I think that sometimes we have blind spots, and those blind spots are like the best things about us. And having someone point those out to you can be so helpful. And if not helpful, like absolutely critical to growing and to like defeating that imposter syndrome. So I think that that's a great point, Callie. And then my second point is I was actually talking to someone else in the industry about the kind of like marketing funnel of influencer marketing. And it's like, if you post a reel promoting a product, like your viewer might get to their landing page, but at that point, like their landing page needs to be captivating enough to get them through the next step of like the marketing sequence. And so to a point, like I see that happen so much that the brand comes back and they're like, "Hey, this didn't perform. We weren't getting the numbers, like the purchases." And I'm like, "But you got the clicks. You know, you got the clicks to the landing page, but you just didn't like once they got to your site, the process didn't continue." So like then I don't know. I think that there's a big gap, and influencer marketing is so new that it's tough to pinpoint a realistic price for real. It's tough to pinpoint like what works when it comes to the landing pages versus the video. So it's tough. It can be really tough. And that I think for me has been a blow to my confidence, so much so that I stepped back from like the social media branded content for a while. And
Same.
it's because it's like, it's exhausting.
Yeah. It can get definitely like it can shoot the ego really fast. I think
Yeah.
that's why it's important to, like you're saying, like have this conversation of recognizing that it isn't entirely up to the influencer to get the sale. Like it definitely, even if anyone who studies marketing knows that half the time, like there is a marketing funnel and it takes multiple moments where the person has the customer needs to become aware of the product. So they have to see it multiple times. Seeing it one time will occasionally get someone to click on it, but half the time they need to see it like, I think it's like 8 to 10 times or something crazy.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, it's more of like an awareness kind of thing. But yeah, it definitely is one of those things where it's important to have that awareness. And I think that does play into a lot of different areas of life, of like around people pleasing and imposter syndrome, of like really knowing like what you bring to the table. And if someone comes at you with, hey, like you didn't do a good job, definitely like take their feedback, look into it, but realize that like it doesn't mean that you're necessarily like terrible at what you do and you need to give up and to quit.
Yeah. And like not all feedback, it depends on who it's coming from, but like not all feedback is good feedback. And, you know, I mean, if you're getting a feedback from a random person in the comment section, like it can be a blow to the confidence, but it doesn't mean that it's valid feedback. And so I think taking that into account has been really helpful for me, at least when it comes to confidence sharing online. I went dark on Instagram. I don't know if you had, because we both have had similar years where, at least, you know, on our conversations off the mic, we both have had similar years. In the sense of like the digital space. And like I went dark on Instagram for about 3 months this year. I don't know if you had an experience like that at all.
I didn't go completely dark. Wait, I'm curious though, how was that for you?
It was amazing. It was amazing. And I put my Instagram on private. Like
Oh wow.
yeah, like I took away my verification check. I like took the creator account off. I put my Instagram on private. I took a long break from the podcast in the summertime. And I think that it's exactly what I needed. I think that I had spent too much time worrying about what people online were saying about me and worrying about what they were going to think and assuming that all they were thinking was negative things. And I think that was like the biggest thing that I pinpointed about myself, of like, oh, I'm looking for validation in the comment section and I'm not looking for validation from like the Lord. Like, I think that was my biggest issue.
That's so good. That's so true. Like, wow. And you know what? That even made me think about something else that I have like been learning about imposter syndrome too, is it's like assuming that they'll find you out, or thinking like, I think specifically with even just in the world of social media, for example, it's like posting something online, knowing that you're not this perfect person and that like what you posted does not, I mean, it's true, but it's not like every waking moment of your life, and being so afraid that someone's going to find you out. And then when you get that comment that alludes to that, that's when sometimes it's like, oh my goodness. And like, it just feels like the world's ending because like they found you out or whatever. But that's something else I'm learning about, is like that can contribute to that imposter syndrome or whatever, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you know what, Callie, hearing you say that, something that really stuck out to me was just the idea of like being imperfect and how people might like find out that you're not perfect. And
Yes.
and as I've been doing like the podcast rebrand, we've kind of rephrased some things, and one of the phrases that we've decided to roll with is the imperfect balance of function versus fun when it comes to 80/20. And I think leaning into that imperfection can actually help you rather than hurt you, because it's almost like if someone would comment like, oh, well, you're not perfect, which is such a random thing to say. And I hope that no one ever comments that, because that's just like a dumb thing to say. But if someone were to comment like, oh, well, you're not perfect, it's like, I could lean into that and be like, well, yeah, that's kind of my whole thing. So, and for you, like healthy but human, like that's kind of your whole thing. Like imperfection's kind of your whole thing. I'm healthy, but I'm also human. And,
Totally.
and we all know what it means to be human. it means that we're not perfect. So I feel like for you, like you could lean into that so hard because you are showing sides of yourself on the podcast and online that like it could be this great thing or it could just be this day-to-day life, like human moment, like real vulnerable human moment. And that like, there's nothing, you're not impostering anything about that. Is impostering a word? You are an imposter. I guess yeah. It's a noun, right? Doesn't matter. You sorry. That was a lot.
Imperfectly, perfectly balanced grammar.
I'm an imperfect imposter.
No, you're so right, though. You're so right. And you made me even think about this, too. I saw this thought pop into my mind that I was chatting with my friend about literally yesterday, is how, like, going to church and stuff, like, everyone just puts on their best face without even, like, thinking about it. It's like, I realized I was doing that. I like going to church. I was, like, lifting my hands up. And I realized half the time, like, I'm doing that. I want people to be like, she's a good Christian, or wow,
because she's worshiping like with her arms in the air kind of thing. Okay.
I was like, because and even okay, even like with a baby, like church is totally different now for me. It looks just totally.
Okay, tell me about that. Tell me more about that because I'm interested.
This episode is brought to you by Iams Pet Food. When you choose Iams dry dog or cat food, you can see a difference in your pet with your own eyes. Healthy energy in 5 days, healthy digestion in 10 days, and healthy skin and coat in just 25 days. Satisfaction for you and them. Guaranteed or your money back. Feed Iams dry dog or cat food and see a visible difference. Visit iams.com/difference to learn more.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really interesting because, like I said, she's on a little schedule. For anyone who is a new mom, I have a rec, and I know you probably get so many recs, but this is a really good rec that was recommended to me. It's a book called Moms on Call. It is so good, and it might not work for every baby, but it worked so well for Belle. The schedule. Anyways, the schedule hits, the breastfeeding time hits when church starts. So last week or 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to breastfeed her in the car. And then I kind of got like FOMO. I was like, I want to worship. But then the Lord's like, I'm here with you right now. You can still worship me. And we had a great moment. We had a beautiful moment in the car. But then this past week, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go in this time and just use like a breastfeeding cover and breastfeed her. Who cares? Like there's a nursing room, but I'm like, I'm not going to hide. Like that's one thing with being a new mom that's super interesting is I feel like breastfeeding is, I don't know if taboo is the word to use for this, but it kind of is like hush hush, like, oh, she's like breastfeeding, but it shouldn't be. It's like you're feeding your baby. You're keeping your baby
She's
alive.
hungry. She's hungry.
She's a hungry girl.
Yeah, she's growing. Yeah.
I've kind of been like, you know what? Like,
has anyone ever said anything to you? Has anyone been like, ew, or anything like that? Like in public?
Thankfully, no. I think good. If they did, I think I would respond. I'd be like, you clearly don't have a kid. But, you know, I think it definitely has been, thankfully it's not been like that. And I wonder if it's because the area I live in is more of a kind of like an older town. If a lot of people are kind of grandparents and have already done it themselves, so they're not weird about it. It's also kind of a beachy surf hippie area, low key. Like
people are kind of more like laid back and they don't really mind kind of thing. Okay.
Very earthy. Like I could probably have my boobs out on the beach and no
That's good though. That's good. In the sense of like you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's been nice in church because I was like, you know what? Like I'm just gonna do the cover, like whatever. And I did that and I was feeding her and it all was amazing. It was really funny though because she does tend to puke after she eats. And so she was staring at this lady, like the lady's like, oh, you're so cute. And literally just like pukes everywhere. But you know, and puked all over my hair and stuff. And it's just one of those things where I just laugh. Like it's just so cute and funny. I'm like, you're adorable. This is really gross, but like you're so cute. Like I don't care. Like puke in my hair. I don't care. It's hair wash day. Otherwise, like it's been good. I think it's just even when she like cries a little bit, it's just like navigating that of like, okay, I'm going to go take her to a different room. But yeah, it's been interesting just trying to be like present with the Lord and also be taking care of a baby. Talking about multitasking earlier, feels like that.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of going back to your point of like being at church and like raising your hands in worship or stuff like that. I was going to ask, like, this might be kind of deep, but like, have you taken that to the Lord of like, hey, am I worshiping you because I feel like I need to stand here? Like, I believe the words that I'm saying, or I'm just doing it because it's more of like, I feel like I need to, raise my hands because everyone's raising their hands kind of thing.
Okay, so this goes so like hand in hand with people pleasing, right? Like this is people pleasing. I'm just like trying to get rid of it in all areas of my life. And what I realized was when I was raising my hands, not every time, but a lot of the time, even like going up front, it was like wanting people to have this image of me or to like not find me out that I'm not this like perfect Christian girl all the time. And I'm becoming aware of these things. Like I'm starting to notice them within myself. And in those moments, like I've been just trying to give it to the Lord and be like, God, like, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that I've been caring more about what other people think than actually what you think. So trying to find that fear of the Lord. And it's been really cool because then I'm just like a church, for example, that was happening. And I was like, okay, I want to raise my hands, but like I need to do it from my heart, not from I want people to be impressed by me.
Yeah.
So I just like I tried to just put myself in how I like in the setting I was in the car. It was so real and raw. I tried to just completely blind myself from the fact that there were people around me who I know and just be with Jesus in that moment. And that is when I felt like that connection with him. And that is when I raised my hands authentically for the Lord because I felt like I was with him and me only. So I think in those moments, it's just ice, like it's just in your mind, block out the noise, block out the eyes of other people, and just getting one on one with God and not caring what people think about you at all.
That's beautiful. And that's such good advice because I think, especially as Christians, like there are obviously expectations and nobody's perfect. And that's kind of the whole thing here of like, are we being imposters or are we actually being authentically faithful? And so for someone listening who is struggling to even figure out if they're being authentically faithful, what's like a good first step? Because it sounds like you've been good at identifying it and then addressing it like in the moment, which I think is amazing. But what about for someone who is like, I don't even know like what I'm supposed to be doing, like if I'm performing or if I'm, meeting expectations, like what would you say to someone who's kind of like hasn't identified it yet? Like maybe how they could identify it.
Yeah, I think just asking yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing is a really good step. Not from like a judgy place, but just be like, what's my motive genuinely? And if that's still not really doing it for you, I think one of my favorite things is just asking God to expose it in my heart. A lot of times we're actually really blindsided by it. Like we don't even notice it. We're very blinded to it. We don't even notice it. And it just takes the Holy Spirit just opening our heart and allowing us to just see some of the ugly. And, the Lord, I think, also exposes things to us in his timing when he knows we're ready to know that's there. I think if he exposed everything in my heart that wasn't of him, I'd be a little overwhelmed. I'm not going to lie.
I'd be super overwhelmed.
Yeah. I'd be like, oh, I must be just a failure.
Yeah. It must be really bad. Yeah.
But I think it's a refinement process. I think just ultimately surrendering to God, and he knows your heart. He knows you want to be better. He knows you love, like wanting to do it because you love him, not because you want to be a better Christian or be more holy for other people. Like he ultimately knows why you want to do it. So I think that's one of my best tips I have.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, I want to pivot just a little bit. You are opening an in-person Pilates studio, Sunshine Pilates, and I want to know all about it. So you are kicking it off in your garage, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so tell me all about that because if you guys are listening and you haven't seen Callie's studio, her home studio yet, you got to go look it up on Instagram because it's stunning. Can you tell me about like how you decided to kick things off in your garage?
Yeah. So it honestly is so wild. I was pregnant over the summer, and I'd like find myself waking up at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, kind of like a lot. And one night, but like I'd be able to fall back asleep, But one night I just woke up at 4 a.m. and I could not fall asleep for the life of me. I had so many ideas running through my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, I wonder how many mats I could fit in my garage to have a class in my garage for workout. And a little backtrack story, just so you kind of have context. I felt the Lord call me to start doing these classes in the spring called Pilates and Praise. So it's Pilates blended with worship music and affirmations that are rooted in Christ. And the end of the class, we have a little devotional, just time with the Lord. So I was doing that on the beach, and it kind of got to the point in my pregnancy where it was a lot to just go to the beach every Saturday morning. I had morning sickness literally my entire pregnancy. So it was kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, like I get a little nervous that I need a restroom. And I was like, you know what? Like I just kind of want to see if I can shift this to my garage. So I actually already had mats, because other backtrack story, John and I had been praying in, I think it was March timeframe, and I wanted to open an in-person studio, but I didn't. Commercial spaces are pricey. And I was like, I don't really know when the right time is to open an in-person Pilates studio. But we were like, we felt the Lord be like, I think, what was it? It was like build the house. Ugh, I don't remember the exact word. Anyways, we felt the Lord calling us to maybe get the equipment first before the actual space. So we ordered a bunch of equipment from Bala, like super cute pink mats. And I was like, okay, so how many of these mats can I fit in my garage? And I, like 4 a.m., I'm super pregnant. I'm just like laying out these mats, kind of eyeballing it. And I'm like, okay, I could fit like 8 people here. This is amazing. And then from there, I just slowly started having classes in my garage. People were showing up. I was like, okay, people still want to take this in my garage. Like, cool. I started just adding more decorations. I started making a place to film my classes for Sweaty Studio. And eventually, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was so nervous to just make it this official thing, because Pilates and Praise was just this unpaid class. And I was like, imposter syndrome, like, will people want to show up if it's not paid? Like, am I even good at this? Anyways, I finally ordered the night I woke up at 4 a.m. or no, another night I woke up at 4 a.m. and I ordered this vinyl sign of my logo. I got the logos designed by this girl who, shout out Stoke Design. She's literally amazing. And she made the logo.
She's the best. She's the best. She did 80/20's branding and logo and stuff.
She's so good.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
So good. Favorite graphic designer. So anyway, she made us a really cute logo, and I got a little vinyl for it. And I finally was like, it was sitting next to my desk for weeks. Like, I was so nervous to just hang this up in my garage, because I was like, I don't know. I'm like scared. I'm scared to make this thing official. So finally, me and my mother-in-law, Cynthia, we hung it up in the garage. And when we did that, I was like, this just has to be a thing now. Like, it's so cute. So we started I trained my friend Callie to be an instructor, certified her, and then we've started doing like weekly classes. It's been a soft launch, very, very small soft launch, but I'm going to try and do more of a hard launch in the new year. So that's been really exciting. But it has been a journey. In person is totally different than online. It's crazy.
That's so amazing. I'm so excited for you. What would you say has been the biggest difference between online and in person?
Oh my goodness. I think marketing, it's totally different. Like, yes, in person, social media does definitely help a lot, but like getting the word out locally, it's like tabling, doing collab events with other businesses. It's very like traditional kind of feeling marketing. It's just like very different. Like, I'm not used to this. I'm like, oh, I'm so out of the comfort zone at my table trying to talk to people in person.
Do you do like pop-ups and stuff with like, yeah, okay, sweet.
Yeah, that's something that we're like working on doing more of. We did like we like did tabling, but we're going to do like a little surf event pop-up hopefully in the spring.
That's amazing. It's a ton of work.
Because you're doing, oh my goodness, wait, you're doing your thing too. Are you still
doing
it?
I forgot. We didn't talk about this on your episode. Yeah. So we have a run club. It's called Soul Run Club. Caitlin also did the logo for that. And it's a Christ-centered fitness community. So we do a run once a week and then a Bible study after. We had a twice a week one in the summertime, but it's too cold. Like people don't come out for the winter. The winter's been kind of light. But yeah, it's still going strong. We do like pop-ups with like a Pilates studio around here. We did a yoga event on a dock in the summertime. It's been so cool though, but I would totally agree. It's definitely a different marketing. The one thing that Lexi and I have found works really well is personal invites, like just texting someone on Instagram and just being like, hey, we're having this at this time and you should totally be there. That's been our biggest thing, is like the personal invite.
Yeah, yes, I definitely agree with that. I started like a group chat for Pilates and Praise.
Love it.
Like a literal text group chat. And like that has helped. I think I don't know if you guys found this, but like word of mouth it is so powerful.
Yeah. And especially in like the fitness community, I feel like the best thing that people can do is give their review to a friend and have the friend be like, I trust my friend to invite me to somewhere good. And that's been the best. Whereas opposed to like an online studio, it's all just like TikTok, or even with like the podcast, like marketing Run Club is so different than marketing the podcast. So it's
so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
It's been
different.
Humbling, very humbling, but it's been fun. It's like figuring out something new. I love it.
And your studio itself is really cute. You've done such a great work in your garage. So you said that everything's Bala. Is that right?
Yeah, the equipment's Bala, except for the booty band is my booty band, Sweaty Studio.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's just so like bright and fun and happy. And I would love to come take a class because it sounds amazing.
Yes,
yeah, I need to come visit. I owe you a visit.
Yes, please. That'd be amazing. We'll have to do a little workshop class.
Yes.
But yeah, it has definitely been like I'm definitely still like building it out and stuff. But I think it's just so interesting. It definitely, because I haven't even like hard launched it yet, but I think it's just like getting the confidence and the courage to just be like, even though it's in my garage, like this is still an amazing experience for someone, and being like, this is still valuable. I think because like from the outside, you're like, oh, it looks so cool. But from the inside, I'm like, is anyone going to want to come to a garage and take Pilates? It's been really interesting.
So I just feel like I need to share this just to give you some encouragement. So my parents, they owned a CrossFit gym for 10 years and they started it in the garage. So growing up, so they started it when I think it was 2006. So I was 6 years old. And for, I think those first like 3 to 5 years, it was in our garage. So they had the mats, they had all the equipment, and they built the gym up to like over 100 members eventually. And then I think that it was maybe like half of that in the garage, and then they got a building. So it was a build though. But same thing, they were like, commercial space is too expensive. We're just gonna rock in the garage and see what happens. And it was amazing. And like how cool to just be able to like, work from home. Like tonight, for example, I teach a yoga class from 7 to 8 at a Pilates studio around here. I won't be home till 9, So like how cool is it to have your studio right there at home? You're raising bell. You could, run back inside, after you're done and cook dinner right away. You're taking out that commute. Like how cool, like how much of a blessing is that to have your studio right at home? And I think that the right people are going to walk through the door no matter what. And they're going to trust you to lead them in their fitness journey, in their Pilates journey and beyond, not because of the location, but because of who you are. So I think that you've done an amazing job so far. And I don't think that you should discredit yourself for a second just because it's in your garage.
Thanks. That's so cool. Your parents did that with CrossFit. That's that's amazing. Let's go.
Yeah. And it was so cool. It was amazing. And I mean, we still have the pull-up bars in the garage. And yeah.
As a kid, did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it. And growing up in the gym was so fun. And I think that it equipped me to really be able to tackle any kind of workout class. I really have no fear when it comes to fitness. And I think that just comes with knowing like body awareness. Like I think that because you have this Pilates background, you studied it, you train people in it every single day, you can teach that to Belle, and you probably just will, like naturally, like she'll just grow up like watching you. So she'll just be able to like have this body awareness that like doesn't necessarily come naturally, but like just because she gets to grow up like watching you do this. I think that that's so cool. Like what a gift,
I love that. I think you have a gift of encouragement, by the way.
Thanks. That's encouraging.
You're so encouraging. I'm like,
I think Callie, what it is like I I feel like I do a lot and I have friends that hype me up, but it took a while to find them. And especially like in high school, like when I started I don't know when you started like stuff online, but I started in high school, and like to walk through the halls or like have my videos like played on a big screen at parties and that like have people tear me down for something that like I wanted to do. I like in those moments I was like, dang, like I hope that I get to encourage people one day to pursue their passions instead of having like having them be torn down for it. So that's kind of
I believe that happened to you.
yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's
I know.
crazy, like out of a movie.
Yeah, literally. Like I was I'll never forget. I was at like a party. It was like pre-homecoming. We were like tie-dyeing t-shirts and stuff at this one kid's house. And he's like, "What, you're not gonna vlog this?" And I'm just like, "What? Like, who cares? Like, of course I'm not going to vlog it because you're going to make fun of me. You're going to make fun of me if I do. You're going to make fun of me if I don't. So I might as well just do whatever I want." But yeah. So anyway, I really try to hype my people up. Obviously, I'm never going to tell you that you can do something if I don't think that you can, but I totally think that you can with this. You are well beyond equipped to absolutely do this. And I think that I think that 2025 is going to be a cool year for you. I just kind of have a good feeling.
Thanks, girl. Same for
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
It's a big year. Everyone listening, it's a big year for all of you too.
I think it's going to be a big year. I think it's going to be, I feel like for me, 2024 was a building year. Would you say that?
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally. I think I went through so many lows in 2024, like really disempowering lows.
What do you think was the biggest takeaway from some of those low lows?
I think I operated a lot in legalism. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it is definitely, I mean, there's like definitely a spiritual realm out there, as we know. And a lot of times when you're trying to like please the Lord and you're trying to do things to whatever, be close to him, all the things, I think legalism can sneak in a lot and make you feel like you have all these rules that you have to follow to be loved by God. And the thing is that God loves us not for our works, not for what we do. And he doesn't need us to impress him. He already loves us. And so for a while, I definitely felt like I had to include God in every single social media post, every single workout I filmed, to the point where I was afraid that if I didn't include God, that he was going to punish me. And that was a really disempowering season of my life. I didn't feel confident in who I was. I felt like I had to follow all these rules I made for myself. So anyone listening who you're like, that sounds like me, that is not the Lord. That is actually legalism trying to pull you away from God, because God gives us free will. He gives us empowerment in him. And yes, like he guides us in things, but he's never going to try to micromanage you. And I think that's something that I learned a lot this past year.
That's beautiful, Callie. Thanks so much for sharing. So before we go, I have one last question for you. Most people who listen to this podcast are about 22. So if you could go back and give your 22-year-old self one piece of advice, what would you tell her?
Oh man, that is a really good question. What was I doing when I was 22?
I know whenever I ask this now, people are like, ooh, that was like 4 years ago. I gotta like go back. Yeah, I know, right?
I feel like I'm still 22.
No, literally.
I think I'd give myself the piece of advice. Like, I think when I was 22, I was struggling a lot with mental health, like a lot of anxiety and stuff. I think I'd give myself the advice of like, girl, like, trust that God has a plan and that it's all going to work out. I was going through a breakup also in this season, and I definitely was alone a lot. I felt very lonely, just trusting that God, he's faithful and he has plans to prosper me, not to harm me, to give me hope in the future. We talked about that on my podcast. And that he has friends who are going to be life-giving friends, already prepared for me.
Yeah.
And he has a season of my life where I'm not going to feel lonely. I'm going to have a husband who treats me right, a husband who loves me and supports me and cheers me on. So I think I would just give myself advice to just be content in the season that I'm in, pursue God instead of trying to chase down men, and just trust that he is bringing the right people and the right things in my life. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Callie. Thanks so much for sharing. Thanks so much for coming on the pod, for sharing your heart. This was an amazing conversation. So thank you. If the people want to connect with you off the mic, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram. My personal Instagram is at Callie Gualy. My podcast Instagram is at Healthy But Human Pod. And then TikTok, YouTube are also Callie Gualy. And yeah, I would say that is my podcast is Healthy But Human, Studio and Sunshine Pilates. So yeah, any of those spots, you can find me.
Thanks so much, Callie. It was great to chat with you today.